MALAVENTO, the newest addition in Overwatch's map pool. It's pretty much if Rialto and Yemen from Black Ops 2 had a kid. I'm going to extensively cover all of the rollouts I could find whilst playing around with this map in star difficulty order. I'll quickly explain what that means. So I've organised the rollouts into difficulty categories, ranging from 1 star up to 5 stars, 1 being the easiest rollouts and 5 being the hardest. This way, if you aren't as confident with your mechanics on Doomfist, you can learn the lower star level rollouts first before going into some crazy malarkey. So with that said, let's start off with the 1 star rollouts. These rollouts are going to be very easy to pick up and perform consistently with a bit of practice, even for people who have no experience with Doomfist. Though these rollouts are easy, they set a very solid foundation, as a lot of the time, even the higher skilled players will use these rollouts as their simplicity is simply irreplaceable. This category consists of very simple things that aid your gameplay so much, even simple things like learning to use the edges of surfaces to grant yourself an indicator slam like so. Boosts your playstyle very much. You can use these stairs to perform what is called a slide slam. Slam on these stairs at an angle and you'll slide along the surface. It increases your slam damage. Here's something interesting I found too. If you're planning to engage on someone around one of these corners, jumping, then slamming into this window at an angle will greatly increase your slam damage. On to the 2 star rollouts. This category begins to introduce the more technical side to Doomfist, using some bounces and some simple diagonal punches as methods of engagement. On the enemy, I mean, don't try diag punching your girlfriend. There are many rollouts in this statue area, and incidentally, this area is where many people like to play. You can even use the bounce pads to get creative with some rollouts too. Something I thought was pretty neat was that you could punch all around the edges of the map. Maybe not incredibly useful, but I thought it was too cool not to include. The most abundant of them all, the 3 star rollouts. The 2, 3 and 4 star categories share many overall similarities. It's just that with each star category, they get more difficult to pull off consistently and require a much higher understanding of the character's kit. There are many more diagonal punches in this category, and even some diagonal slide punches too, which are similar to normal diags. I have an in-depth video explaining it in case you yearn for knowledge. A lot of these rollouts don't grant much visibility, and so leaves you with a lot of uncertainty about landing hits on the enemy. With no teammates to communicate the enemy's position for you, it is all the more important that you're prepared to make a swift exit with either one of your abilities or your meteor strike in case if things get dicey. Because of this, I tried to make the destination of many of these rollouts in core locations of where people were commonly playing in the games that I did. But depending on where the enemies are playing for you, adjust the landing accordingly. There comes an increasingly greater price for failure as these rollouts get more difficult. Like diagonal punching on the edges of the map, it can go skew-whiff pretty fast. I'd advise you to be confident in your mechanics and practice them before using them in game. And finally, for any widows residing in the church, use the old diagonal punch off the MALAVENTO Flora to give them the what for. On to the 4-star rollouts. For a lot of these, you may be asking yourself, Clowner, why oh why are these not 3-star rollouts? Well, Sam, or is it Joe? My answer to that is consistency. You try pulling these off in game as consistently as the others. Go ahead, I'll wait. These are overall a lot more difficult to pull off due to the inconsistency that they can have a lot of the time, making it unadvisable to pull these off in game unless you're undeniably confident in your mechanics. This category introduces some super jump spots as well, which I thought was pretty neat, and again, there will be a video linked in the top right explaining what exactly I'm talking about. The risk is greatly increased with this category of rollouts, as messing it up can be cataclysmically terrible, and pulling it off doesn't even grant that big of a reward, so use them at your own doing. I thought this was an awesome escape rollout on this map when I found it. If you're being surrounded on both sides, you can uppercut and punch jump slightly to the left over this roof and go all the way around the church tower. How cool is that? I think overall Malavento's map geometry is absolutely incredible for Doomfist especially. Very well designed, and for the most part, very consistent to bounce and diag off of as well. So good job to the Blizzard team. Very cool. And last but not least, the 5-star rollouts. The don't try this at home category. I'd say the only use for these is if you want some very stylish clips for a montage video that you're going to make, which only ends up getting 12 views, but that's okay because you enjoyed the process of making it. Too relatable. I'm going to cover each one individually as there's a lot to go over for each one, starting with the first. I call this one the more complicated than it needs to be. This is a bait rollout. So the main element of this rollout comes from the surprise factor you'll be giving the enemy. You see an enemy on the high ground just in front. Oh yes. And they see you too. Punching directly into them is a terrible idea. Don't do that. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna begin your punch and jump off the side of the ledge, facing toward the statue. Look to release your punch as your crosshair reaches the top of this doorway, and you'll downwards diagonal punch off of it. This will set you up nicely for a bounce off of the plinth of the statue, which you can then follow up for a slam uppercut combo on the very confused McCree on the high ground. That'll get you an extra view or two in that montage you're planning, for sure. Rollout number 2 is a balance spot on the left side of the church front. I find the most consistent way to pull this off is from the roof to the left of the church, excuse me church, but there are other ways to pull this off too. From the high ground, jump and uppercut to grant you just enough height. You then want to charge a quick punch jump to bounce off of the roof. As you release your punch, turn your punch to the right to angle you toward the balance spot. You want to land on the very edge of this square with mild forward momentum. All the time you're in this balance spot, you want to be holding forward, as this is the only way you can stay up here. You can then use this balance spot as a high ground to engage from, with all of your cooldowns available. The third spot is balancing on the same geometry, but on the opposite side of the church front. Come to the bridge and aim toward the walkway roof. Bounce from it and land on the square with again a mild amount of forward momentum. You are able to land with just the bounce momentum, but I was a fungus monkey and I had to use my uppercut afterwards. Which, by the way, it's okay if you need to use your uppercut as well. It doesn't make you a fungus monkey. I'd say the most useful engage from this balance spot is over this roof to engage the often occupied back street. And the fourth rollout is, yeah. This used to be a common thing Doomfist players would do, but since they reworked the Seismic Slam, it became significantly harder to pull off consistently. It was an old tech called the wall slam, where you could get yourself purposefully caught on geometry when slamming to make yourself fall to the ground. The reason why this works is because the gate isn't actually a solid wall. The hitbox is the same as the visual, and so there are gaps in between each of the poles. The only guide I can give toward this one is to uppercut over the gate so that you are over the other side, then with your indicator displaying on the floor, slam as late as possible before going underneath the top of the gate, and it'll give you a 125 slam with a very confused enemy. Well, that's it for the rollout. Oh, you thought the 6-star rollout category. Okay. There is one challenge rollout I want you guys to try to pull off. It is completely useless and very fucking difficult to pull off. So comment down below if you're able to pull this off. The rollout is simple to explain. From this bounce pad, slam to this high ground. That's it. So simple. Alright, that's gonna do it for the rollout. Oh, you thought! No, I'm kidding. Let me know what you guys think of the new map. I personally like it, not as much as Kanazaka, but it'll do. See you in the next video.